Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Oh, hey, guys, it's Phil Tarrant. I am the host of the Smart Property Investment Show. Welcome to my regular chat where I talk about mortgages and finance and all that good stuff. And as we all know, real estate, property investing is a game of finance. And if you're not playing that finance game as effective as you can, it's probably going to slow down your buying and or make it more expensive than what it needs to. So we get together every couple of weeks with the crew over at Finni Mortgages. It's a team we turn to for advice and insights around mortgages. Join them in the studio, Eva Loisance, who is the head broker over there. She knows what she's doing more than pretty much any other broker I've met. So I turn to her for insights and opinions. Eva, how you going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I learned something from you a little bit earlier.
Did you? Yeah.
And that is, in the great land of the France, in order to be a journalist, you need to be a lawyer.
You need to have
a legal degree. What do you call it?
Degree.
LLB degree, like a
licence.
What?
Licence.
A licence. So you need a license.
License, yeah.
So you need a license.
Yes, a license.
So you need a licence. But to be a journalist, you have to have a legal degree because the idea being is that probably creates better lawyers and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I guess obviously depends on the field you would be working on. But if you want to work in anything worldwide interest, you probably would need to know what you're talking about.
So when you wanted to grow up, you wanted to be a journalist. Now you are. Look at you. You're on podcasting.
Yes.
It's the modern day journalism.
Reporting.
So
eventually you made it.
It's close this big loop,
it
right?
is,
It's come back in and how you enjoying it? How you enjoying podcasting? It's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Highlighted
the fun stuff of the week. And,
yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah, the last show I had was pretty cool. With
Gizam.
Isam.
Yeah, that's been actually very I don't know, we had so many people reaching out after.
Really?
Yeah. I think people
Girls
can
or guys?
relate to her and in a way that she did things, it's everybody. So
that's really cool.
yeah.
So more guests. More guests. Well, so how to pronounce the name again?
Gizam.
Gizam. Gizam. That's right. Gizam from Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 years in software and found Australia and made it the
3
home
properties and counting.
So have we we need to get more guests on, but when you look at the Finni client base, like, have you got a lot of migrants in there? Or is it like, yeah? And we sort of spoke about got a little bit more of a spring to the step sometimes getting stuff done.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of great of coming here with nothing and having to make it work. So sort of look at other ways. I actually lined up, he's Australian, but Sam, if you're listening, you're coming. He used to work in the Marines and retiring from that. Has built a huge portfolio.
Used to work
with me.
Sorry? In the
Marines.
In the Marines?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes. Young guy, and he's done so well just, buying, getting equity, selling, restarting things.
Really? I look forward to that chat.
Yes, so it's going to be great.
That'd be good. Yeah, we like guests, so keep bringing them in. But this idea of starting with nothing and creating something probably is a great vehicle for doing that. One of the sort of pieces of commentary you hear in and around mortgages all the time and real estate and property investing is it's impossible to invest in property because it's so expensive. And typically you don't really hear that out of the migrant communities. You probably hear it more from your born and bred Aussies who think it's an obligation and a right of all Australians to own their own property, which is nice in theory. In practice, it's quite difficult. But there are ways and means in which Aussies can get in a property, and we'll have a chat about it today. And it's largely through finance and being able to raise deposits in order to get into it. And that's the reason why we have a lot of family pledges and guarantor type loans. And that's what I really want to sort of dig into today. How do you actually use these things? And for those of you who are investing and have got kids, maybe some ideas around how you can support them getting them into the market. But the inverse of that, for all those people tuning into it who are sort of kicking off, and it doesn't matter how old you are, as a property investor, you can leverage family pledge and guarantor loans even if you're in your 40s and 50s. You know, there's no reason why, even in your 60s.
Yeah, and that's actually quite common, more common than you think.
Is it really?
Yeah, post-divorce.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people getting divorced would
Yeah.
go, I want to buy out my partner's share of the
Not even
the
that. They
house
just end up with, very little money, lost the property, just want to get back in.
Yeah.
Would use their brother or sister's equity to get back in
To
quicker.
get back into it. So we'll get into that. So, but I guess the key point here is there is this sentiment, and maybe not with the people who tune into this podcast, but wider Australia potentially, that the government should be doing more to help people into the property market, and it's the government's obligation to provide and deliver that and make it easier for people. So a lot of noise, and we went through that recent election. It was around, how the government and also at that point in time the opposition were going to put all these new policies in place to make housing more affordable and help more Australians into the market. What I would say is that that's nice to have, but it shouldn't be really shaping your decision making. There is a whole bunch of other things you can do. There's a whole bunch of other ways you can amplify your ability to invest in property by not being reliant on the government. And I think we need to make that a key point. And those people that sit around and wait for the government to do more, typically the people that don't do much, it's those people who operate outside of what government's incentives there are and be a lot more focused and conditioned to taking control of their own futures, are the ones who typically get results. So there's lots of ways you can do that, isn't it, Eva?
And I find myself, like the last 2 or 3 months, explaining this over and over and over, that what is on offer is so restrictive, doesn't get you to what you want, probably not the property you want, not the location you want. Then you sort of force yourself to fit in those boxes to make it work, and you might be actually in the long term losing.
And that's really good counsel, because a lot of people would get caught up in this, hey, I can get this grant and therefore get into the market. Like the grants are orientated a particular way to get the outcome that the government wants. And let's look at some of them here. Victoria, for example, the first home owner grant, you get $10,000 for new homes valued up to $750,000. So the important bit there is it's got to be a new home. That means you've got to take on the building of it, or it's just been built and you need to buy that. So that might be nice if you're owner occupier, and it's all
on occupier,
home.
Right? It's not in. Yeah, first of all, there's no investment.
There's no investment stuff.
Yeah.
So that means you need to buy a new home in order to get
live
that.
in it. Yeah.
And live in it. Same with New South Wales, $10,000 for new homes valued up to $600,000 or up to $750,000 if you're building. So it means you need to do the building and everything around it. So a lot of these first home owner grants are very much orientated towards the traditional view of how Australians live, as in, I want to build and buy a house in the suburbs and raise a family there, right? Like it's a very.
But if you look at what's available in that price range, that's probably not what people think of to start with, and then they restrict themselves to whatever fits in those boxes.
You think about it, right? And this is on the basis of saying a lot of people go, they'll either go, I'll go and do this to get my $10,000 and I'll live in it for 6 months, then I'll move out and turn it into an investment property. Aren't I clever, right? For 10 grand, we're talking about here, right?
Yep. So
$750,000 if you're building, right? So that's the value of the land, and the dwelling on top of it is $750,000.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really a lot of places in Sydney where you're building a new house, you're buying the land and building it for $750,000. And if you are, it's probably going to be a townhouse in a location where you're probably,
so it would be off the plan unit.
Yep.
It would be, I guess, easy 40 kilometers from the CBD, and it would be very small lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
which we know, I guess, from listening to the podcast, that if you're looking to turn that into an investment, it might not be the best investment.
It probably wouldn't be the best investment, I would say.
For $10,000.
Yeah, when if you had that $750,000 and you deployed that somewhere else, you just bought well, you'd probably make more than 10K straight off the bat, right. and have an asset which is a lot more valuable. So don't get caught up in this idea of like you have to use these grants often. And
if it's exactly what you want to do, you want to buy a unit, off the plan, or you want to buy in, Western Sydney, like I think Austral did so well the last few years, people buying there. That's where you want to live and you're happy with it. It's there, why not? I don't think people should buy based on what's available with that.
Within a grant. But you think about it, right? You get $10,000 in New South Wales. You get $10,000 in Victoria. This is the first time owner grants. In Queensland, you get $30K. In Western Australia, you get $10K. South Australia, you get $15K. Tassie, you get $30K. Northern Territory, you get $10K. And ACT, you don't get any first time owner grant, right? So those numbers really don't move the needle on a property purchase.
No.
It might mean, you think about $10,000, like let's just think for a moment, if you just change your spending habits for a year, whether or not you'd be able to make up your 10K. And then you're shackled, like you're absolutely shackled here in condition. So the other sort of concessions here, stamp duty concessions, most of them have it. Queensland, full exemption up to 500,000. Okay. What's the median up there now? About $1 million. Getting there. Victoria, you get no stamp duty up to 600 and concessions in between that, 750. New South Wales, no stamp duty under 800. Western Australia, nothing under 430. South Australia, no specific exemptions. Tassie, you get available first-time buyers. So the stamp duty relief is a little bit more meaningful, and that's not governed really by anything other than the purchase price often for first-time buyers. So, but still, in a big long list of prioritising how you go about investing in property or as an owner-occupier, or even if you go, I'll get an owner-occupier and then I'll transition to investment property, I'd say this is pretty down the list in your decision making.
I think it comes from the fact it's so hard for people to save up that they're finding any way to not only not pay no stamp duty, have pretty much no deposit and get 10K to help them there. The truth is there's so many other ways that people don't explore that are just easier, less restrictive, and that doesn't, and you don't have to choose your property based on location, price, and
everything else
that the government wants you to choose. And you might think to us about why the government wants you to go in those properties.
It's very cynical. That's how a journalist would think.
Just a question.
Just think about it. Yeah. Well,
I don't have the answer. I'm just asking people to think about it.
They want people to buy new homes because they want to stimulate building.
You know what? Don't get me wrong on this. I've bought my first property through that.
Did you?
Yeah, it was like, it's a place I want to live. It's great. I didn't even really know about it. It was there. I'm like, awesome. Solicitor organized. So it just happened. I enjoyed those things. It wasn't as much at the time, but
that
if it's
hasn't
there,
changed that much. Like it's been like that for the last 20 years. It feels like it's not really. You think about $10,000 on $750,000. What's that as a percentage? You're good with maths.
No, I'm not good with maths.
10,000 on 750. It's not even a percent. Is that right? Is that 0.75%? Is my math right? I've got to get my calculator out. Hang on. I've got to check and confirm this. Okay, $10,000. I should know this. On $750,000. 1.3%. 10 on 750.
So much.
Wow. So there are other ways. See how good I am with maths? Not much. And you've now got the shared equity scheme where the government contributes up to 40% for new builds and 30% for existing homes, therefore reducing the loan size. Buyers only need a 2% deposit. Government holds an equity stake in the property. There's income caps for it. The scheme is not available for investors. So that was a big promise as part of the election.
Yeah, let's see where that goes.
2% deposit, so risky. What happens if you don't buy in the right spot? You're in negative equity. You got to sell it. I'm sure the government doesn't want to take a haircut.
I just feel like saying also, if you haven't been able to save 2% or more than 2%, how are you going to afford?
I know.
It's also that so again I would think twice. And it's so restrictive. You can't sell, you can't refinance, you have to get the government.
But you think about it, right?
Yeah.
On a $750,000 property, 2% is $15,000.
Yeah.
Right. So let's look at it this way, right? So you can get a $750,000 property. All you need for it is there's not going to be any stamp duty. So let's put that aside. You're going to get a grant. Say it's in
10. Yeah.
Say it's in New South Wales, right? You're going to get $10,000. So you only need $5,000. $5,000 plus conveyancing costs.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of grand for something like that.
Mm.
$7,000. So if you've got $7,000 in savings, you can go and get your first home.
Yes.
Why is everyone saying that housing's so unaffordable? That means everyone can get in. But there's caps and restrictions on
Income and all that, yeah.
But still, it's 120K for couples, right? On the income gap, so that would be a big cohort of Australians. So for $7,000, you're a property owner. $7,000, $750,000. I still don't know how this works though. So,
well, it's not.
Is there still 80% loan on it, and the government
No, you would get if the government gets 40%. Literally, that's the ownership. Your loan is 60%.
60% of the 750.
Yeah.
Yeah. Less your 2% probably.
Yeah.
Well, let's call it 60. So 750,000 times 60%. That's $450,000 times, what's a good rate now? 6%?
6. Let's put it at 6. Be less than that.
Owner occupied about 5.
Yeah.
Let's call it 5.8 to be.
Yeah.
It's $26,000 a year divided by 12. It's going to cost you $2,175 a month to service the mortgage on a $750,000.
That's interest only though, Phil.
Interest only. Okay, let's put a bit of fat in it. Call it $2,500, right?
Yeah.
So $2,500
you get a property. Yeah.
a month to service the debt. However, you only needed $7,000 grand in order to become a homeowner. So 2.5 months of your interest repayments would give you enough capital in order to enter the market. So I would say you'd be mad
not to start on this. Yeah, but that's only on 60% of the property. Then you need to attack the other 40% that the government has eventually.
If you want to buy them out. So you got to wait for the thing to go up in value, refinance, buy the government out. Assuming that you've bought in the right place.
Yes.
Might be hard to do so because you're restricted.
But technically, as you said, there's very, very little challenges to get in with that.
But I would argue as an Australian taxpayer, of which I am, that I don't want to deploy the Commonwealth's money into these type of schemes because if someone only needs to if someone's so you're going to be responsible for $2,500 in mortgage repayments every single month. That means you only need to save that for 2.5 months in order to raise the capital to enter the market. I don't believe, and people are struggling trying living inverted commas from paycheck to paycheck. They can't even raise $7,000 in order to get the capital to raise it. How are they going to service a loan at $2,500 a month? The government's going to go. They're going to either default. So who's going to pick it up?
No, the truth is, if you are a couple earning 120, you probably can service 550. So that's enough. Again, your loan was only 430, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know, but they're only taking a 2%. If all they can afford is a 2% deposit, they obviously aren't able to.
They might,
They aren't able to afford the $2,500 it is right now. I don't know. I think they might come unstuck that scheme. I like the intent. It'd be nice to get more people into home ownership, but saving for a little while to get $7,000 so you can get into the scheme, and then the realisation having to pay it $750 less the 60, less the 40% because the government's paying for that. Yeah. So there are other ways.
There are other ways.
And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're not here to sort of look at the interest, and maybe I got that wrong. Like if someone can give me a counter to my very brief sort of interpretation of that particular scheme, I'd like to hear it.
Well, the thing is, it's not in place yet, so things might change. It might be different. It's not there yet.
But someone in the Treasury, the government must be going, we're rolling the dice and risking. I think the greater responsibility is for the government to say to people, if you need a 2% deposit, you probably shouldn't be taking on debt. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to take on the debt and the responsibility. And you see it now, people saying, I wish I never did it. I got into the market, rates are really low. Now I can't live. because I got to service all this debt. I wasn't told it was going to be like this.
I actually don't know if there's that many people taking on these things. Like every time we put one through the bank, because you need to get your spot, right? And we were told like, oh, you need to hurry up. There's only that many. It's like, oh yeah, there's heaps of place. There's heaps of spot. Don't worry about it.
Well, hopefully people being responsible, because you can only see in a few years' time everyone going, I can't afford. I took on this government scheme and there'll be a royal commission on it. I took on this scheme and now I can't afford the debt.
Maybe that's the plan of the government. They're going to end up with property.
But are they going to want the stuff that is the government as in a taxpayer? Do they want to be invested in this type of property? Right? I don't know. So there is other ways, and we're going to get stuck in it rather than sort of moaning and thinking about it. But I'd really like someone a lot smarter to come in and have a chat with us on the Smart Property Investment Show about, even a housing minister, Claire O'Neill, come and explain this, please, because don't put Australians into positions that they shouldn't be in relation to the payment of debt that they might not be able to afford, even though they've just made it easy to get debt. Might not be the best thing.
Well, no, but they would just tell you that has nothing to do with the debt. We just make it easier to get in. The debt assessment is the bank's problem.
I know, but if it's only a 2% deposit, this really is based on those numbers, saved for 2.5 months to get enough capital to get into that, and then the realisation of I've got to pay that every single month, $2,500. I don't think it's responsible. I think it will work for really focused and disciplined people. Yeah, makes me nervous. Just saying. Just saying. It just makes me a bit nervous. And all the other stuff also, like, don't get carried away by thinking, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Just getting a 10 grand for to buy or build a new home, maybe not really the best investment for you. But anyway, we have property investors here. And for those of you looking for other ways to get in the market, we have 6 of them, which are pretty good. 7 of them, which are pretty good, which Eva has penned for me, and we'll get into it. But just go to a quick break. Stay with us. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Eva Loisance, who is the head broker over at Finni, the person I turn to for commentary around mortgages and insights with it. So you don't need to rely on the government. I think we've made that point. Yeah. And take action and be accountable to yourself and go about creating wealth through property. So hopefully in time, you don't need to be relying on the government pension that supports everyone. So then those pensions can actually go to the people who actually need it. That's, again, a very important thing. So you can get into the market. One way is with the family pledge and or guarantor loan. Just quickly explain what that is for everyone, Eva.
Yeah, so that's something that I've done a lot recently with people coming to me for actually trying to get into the scheme and grants and all that. And when I tell them, do you know there's actually ways where you could have a loan with zero in your savings? You actually don't need anything to get started. People are like, oh, what? How did that happen? I thought that didn't exist anymore. I thought you still needed at least 5%. So the family pledge or guarantor's loan is just a way for you to use someone else's equity to buy your home. It could be your home and it could be your investment. So that gets the, restriction of those government scheme where you have to go and move in the property. It has to be your owner-occupier property for a year. You can't rent it out, blah, blah, blah. The family pledge is for owner-occupier or investor. You don't need any money. You can borrow 105% of the property price. So everything's covered.
Okay. And just structurally how that works, so you would take on 80% debt, the 20%, which normally would be a deposit.
Yep.
And then the 3%, 103% would be the other costs like...
so you do 80% of the loan against the property you're buying.
Yep.
20% plus cost against mum and dad's property, your family's property. A term deposit, you can even do it against a term deposit.
So you just take...
A loan against someone else's equity.
But you don't need to pay... It's a contingent loan or...
It's a loan, yeah.
So you've got to pay it off as well.
You need to pay it off, yeah.
Running in parallel with it.
Yeah, it's just like somebody that has already an investment property, getting cash out, buying the second one. That's the same thing, but you're starting with someone else's.
Yep. Okay, so who pays both loans?
The person buying the property. So your parents or your family don't have to pay anything, don't have to give you any cash. all they need to do would be like, yes, I've got equity in my home. You can use it for
Security.
a few years.
So it's security.
It's a security.
Okay. So you put a loan against that security.
Yep.
So do you actually end up with 2 loans or just one loan?
Depend on the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can borrow against the family pledge of the equity for the 20% deposit plus
Cost, yeah.
the 3% of other associated costs. Sounds pretty good.
See, don't even need 2%.
Don't have 2%. You need no percent.
No percent. It's still very much underutilized and known. And when I talk to investors that are already like, in their 50s, 60s, that have kids, and they're like, I just want to have my kids, I only have that much cash to give them. I'm like, well, you have equity. Why would we use that? And you can use it for 3, 4, 5 kids, regardless how many you have. You can use it without giving them any cash.
Okay. But then the kid or whoever the family member is needs to pay back 103% of the loan for a period of time. Yeah.
So, of course, the loan is assessed based on that total loan.
Okay.
Right.
So which would reduce serviceability a little bit. It might change the type of properties you're buying as a result of it, because rather than because you take it's 103% loan.
Yeah, it really.
Which, by the way, had been around
depends.
for a long time. Hundreds of back in the days
Used to
after
be,
the GFC, like you go, we'll lend you 103%, secured against the actual asset that you're buying, rather than the asset you're buying and someone else's security against it. So it's not an old thing. It's not a new thing. Sorry.
No, it's not a new thing. And that can be done with your mum and dad. Can be done with your sister, brother.
So say you've got say the parents have a house. Let's be really simple. It's worth $1 million, right? And they've got 5 kids, and they all want to do this. So they can all take a percentage.
If there's enough equity there to make it work,
But would they take slice, and go, all right, your house now is fully secured against these 5 adjacent loans connected with it? I wonder if that's ever happened. Maybe.
Probably not up to 5 at the same time.
But you've seen
But
multiple?
technically, I've seen up to 3.
Really? And they've all got their little slice.
Yeah. Of equity there.
And how long do one of these loans normally stick around for?
Well, it will be there for a few years until your property has increased enough in value that the total loan is 80%. And then we can release mum and dad's property. So it's either by the value increasing or you paying down the loan.
So you can pay the loan down, and you can, and that incumbency on the property, what they just go, that's satisfied. Send your letter saying that you're no longer.
They will do a new valuation, be like, okay, property has increased enough, we can release mum and dad's property.
And we'll get into some of the mechanics around this, but just thinking out loud, then would that be restrictive then on the person who has put they've made that pledge or made their equity available to support someone else into the market? They won't be able to do anything with that property. They would struggle to refinance it.
No, you could refinance.
Yeah.
The pledge will follow.
Okay.
Right. What would be difficult is if they had to sell.
To sell the property.
Yeah. Then they would have to be secured against another property or a term deposit.
Yeah.
Or the loan would have to be paid down a bit.
But if they were looking to buy more property, even if they had cash to do so, that would decrease their serviceability because there'd be less equity in that property.
It wouldn't decrease serviceability. It would just decrease how much equity they can use.
Okay.
Yeah. The borrowing capacity would be the same.
Borrowing capacity would be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if they were trying to release money out of it, obviously they would be able to release that 20%.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like most parents, let's say, they have a 25 years old child, if they bought their property 30 years ago,
it's probably nearly paid off.
Yeah, or have lots of equity in there.
So the property's still paid off. It's just got a second mortgage against it, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it.
That's all it is.
Yep.
Sounds okay.
Sounds great.
So some of the benefits of this then, number one, Eva, is a lower deposit requirement. Means you can move faster.
Lower, 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even need 5 or 10%. I mean, it's great if you do. Then we can borrow a bit less money. But technically, you don't need anything at all.
But you can do this in conjunction with government grants as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, you could.
So that means that $10,000 you can use to buy furniture and stuff.
Yeah.
There's ways of way. And because you're going to get the stamp duty break as well. So if you do a full family pledge, 103%, you're going to get your no stamp duty. So
Be nothing.
you'd be ahead of the game. Get a brand new car.
Cars
New flat
with
screen
that.
TV.
Yeah.
Flat screen TVs in every room. That's what I say. Take as much as you can. It's not advice, by the way. Okay, so lower deposit. So it's no deposit. So it means, it just...
So you don't even need the 5 or the 10 or the 20% that we hear all the time. Really, you need nothing. The ideal would be that you have enough to cover still your legals and maybe a bit of stamp duty.
Yeah.
And, pest and building checks.
Yeah. What I would say is part of this, that's all good, but when you're borrowing 103% of the value of the property, yes, there's a contingent liability that your family needs to wear, which only really becomes, live if you fail to meet your repayments, right?
So they do get legal advice. It's a requirement.
You need it.
Yeah.
And I'd probably say you need an agreement as well. I'd be putting an agreement with the kids saying, like a proper legal contract saying, if you do this and blah, blah, blah. And, you always plan for the best, plan for the worst.
Hope for the worst.
But again, I was saying this probably is consistent with my observations there around that shared equity scheme, is that if you can only raise a 2% deposit, maybe you probably shouldn't be investing in property because you probably don't yet have the discipline to be able to understand and appreciate the repayment of debt. If you're taking on 103% of the value of a property, as in a loan against it, and you haven't been able to raise any money yourself, you don't have a big deposit, I'd question the real reality of paying down a loan at that amount every single month in, month out. Again, you need to have some pretty hard conversations if you're a parent doing this for their kids, right? Like,
I think it's circumstantial as well. Like people would, you change your habits once you do.
Really? Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I'd be going, well, you show me that for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, there you go. Good saving. You don't need 103% now.
What if someone is renting and, that rent costs them $3,000 a month and the mortgage costs them $3,000 a month?
That's a fair
They couldn't save it.
Fair scenario. But I would like to
see that.
It's a good counterpoint.
Yeah.
If they've showed the regularity of paying $3,000 in rent,
because most people,
month
that's
for
what
2
it is.
years.
They're renting, and rent's not.
You make a good point. You make a really good point. Yeah. So you're pretty much saying that same amount of money going into paying a loan. I say that's a positive. I get the case for that.
Yeah.
But if it's a kid sitting at home, you know what I mean.
This is not our.
Or
clients.
if it's a kid sitting at home, at home who wants an investment property, I would say, okay, I'd do that. I need you to show me. You match that interest repayment, what it will be for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and I'm in. But you got to show me that discipline beforehand.
What if it's your child suddenly turns 20, 18, whatever?
Yeah.
Just get their first job, has seen you feel like investing and just want to do the same ASAP.
Yeah.
Would you still wait for 6 months?
I'd like to see a commitment first. I would. Yeah.
Just show me.
Just show me your savings. Like, go save a bit. You're getting your clothes washed and food cooked,
fair enough.
But I could see it as an enabler, and like this lower deposit requirements, no deposit. Yep. What a great way to accelerate, the pathway of buying, and I guess one of the other key sort of benefits is to avoid lenders' mortgage insurance, which is another cost that
that's another big one. So again, if you've got 5%, you still pay LMI. If you get 10%, you still pay LMI, which LMI is good, right? Gets you the market quicker. But with this, you can do 80-20 still and pay no LMI. So that's a bit of a cost saved. Mind you, you can still do 90-10 as well if there's not enough equity in the parents' property.
Yeah, it's us, It's a nice head start. The parents, how often is it? Give me a sense.
A lot.
Like?
A lot.
Yeah? So who do you normally speak to first, the parent or the budding investor?
Well, it depends. Like often it's actually a bit of the scenario of someone that's probably 25 to 30, finally getting a job that pays enough.
Some money.
Yeah, enough for them to think about, okay, well, I can put a bit of saving aside. They got a bit of education through podcasts or their friends doing the same. They just want to get in as quick as possible. They don't want to have to show 6 months worth of saving. So there is this case. And then there is our investors that have kids that are in that age bracket. It's like, how can they help them?
So it just means you don't need to go through that. It's a massive shortcut. It's like you don't need to save for years and years and years and years and years and years. And this is it, right? Like your saving often is outpaced, and this is the criticism you hear about the Australian property market. Your ability to save is often outpaced by the growth in property prices. So you just, the gap gets bigger and bigger and bigger around it. So this gets you into the market
but quicker,
faster, which is like what LMI does, right? But this is,
but
again,
it's
no
LMI on that one.
Absolute shortcut. And a good thing also is that it's not reliant on the first home guarantee. It's the third point, or first home owner grant, which means you're unencumbered, or your decision making where you buy and how you buy it isn't shaped by
anything,
the needs and requirements of the stuff. So you can make more informed investing decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, could be anywhere, any price that you can afford, obviously.
What's the biggest you've seen so far as a pledge?
The property purchase was 1.5 on occupier.
Okay.
That was 6 years ago.
Wow. So that'll be probably 2 and a bit now.
Actually, it would be great for podcast, that one. So a year ago, 2 years ago, probably, we released the parents' property.
Yeah.
We released equity in the property itself to build a second floor.
Okay.
And the property now is probably worth 2.5 or so.
Wow.
And that couple is now looking to invest as well.
So parents got them into it, good property to live in.
So they were investor themselves.
Yeah.
There was one contacted me first to help their son and daughter-in-law to get in the market. And they, at the time, they came and said, can we get an equity release for like 300,000 or 400,000 to give to the kids?
Yeah. And did that change the parents buying or investing?
No, again, it doesn't change their capacity. It only reduces the equity.
So did it stop them?
They have quite a few investments.
So that was what a great sacrifice. Yeah.
It's like passing on sort of the wealth early on, but take it back in 3 years' time.
It's like a living inheritance that you get returned, right?
Yeah.
It's a contingent inheritance.
I think it's a great product. I love it.
You know, it is good. I've always been very aware of it. I know people who've used it. I've never used it, but it's like a contingent inheritance. It's going, all right, here you go. I'm going to give this to you now while I still can. But it's contingent because I get it all back. So I get all the upsides. So if you're really smart, you space your kids out sort of every 3 years. You go, there you go. You got 3 years to get it back. Then I'm going to give it to Billy. Then I'll give it to Shirley. Right? Like, sort of get it. But that sounds like they made a smart decision. So the property went up in value. They refinanced, had enough in there to release the parents and make enough money to build another story on it.
Yeah.
Built this thing, got it refinanced.
Yeah. Great success.
Then got enough money to invest in
I tried to get them on the podcast. So you can.
No, didn't, was it?
No, I'll try to get them. I will try. We'll see.
Okay, it's a good version of it. So there's some other sort of aspect of this which makes sense. We'll get into it after this break. See you in a moment. Welcome back, Phil Tarrant, Smart Property Investment with Eva out at Finni Mortgages, finni.com.au. You guys are sort of ending up the financial year. Is this when everyone sort of starts calling up going, they've got this, start of the financial year, I better start doing something, like, you know, are people refinancing at the moment? Like, what's going on with, and I'm happy to report, I looked at all my interest rates the other day. I spent some time on it with the bank. And they're all passed on.
Yeah.
But what I am hearing, and I've got a question for you, and you can name and shame people if you like. I don't know if I will, but depends. I know of some lenders who aren't passing on the full amount.
Yeah.
And some of the reasons why that I don't want to get too technical with this, but that you have like lenders who use deposit money, like your banks and non-major banks, think CBA and Westpac and all those guys. They've all been pretty good passing on stuff. Then you've got non-major banks who are sort of they're ADIs as well. They're all cool. Then you've got mutuals and all that sort of stuff. They're ADIs. Their loans are pretty good. But then you get down into non-banks. So they don't use deposit money and other ways to lend the money out. They get money from somewhere else. package it up and lend it on. You have mortgage managers, which is a version of that. Mortgage managers package up other people's loans under their own name and push them out. So they borrow their money typically from major banks and other lending institutions. So some of those lenders that lend to the mortgage managers are pretty much going, we don't want to be doing this no more. And therefore,
not passing on.
They're not passing on the stuff. And you could probably share some names if you want of those lenders that aren't doing that. But what I would say is that if you're with a lender who is not passing on the full rate, reductions, you probably need to get onto this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And no doubt one of the reasons why they're doing this is they want people to refinance out of these loans.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah. There's also a lot of people that don't even check, don't even look, don't even care.
Don't look at their rates.
No. You wouldn't believe, like, when I do my interviews with people, I ask, what's your interest rate? They don't know. They have to look on their apps. And I get it when it's someone that has like 5-6 investment property, but most people only have one loan.
Normally they would know more than most. I know all my rates. I mean, the 5's on some stuff.
No, they don't know. So I think they're betting also on people not really
looking at it,
or not really understanding what was the actual cut, how much is it. Oh yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be livid if I wasn't getting passed on, but it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's not happening as much as it's happened in the past, but it's still happening.
And then we're expecting more rate cut. So after 1 or 2 or 3 that's not passed on in full, it's a big difference.
Well, if they haven't done it now, they're not going to do it in the future either, right? And I even see some of the majors now pricing in 4 rate cuts, I believe, up until the end of next year. 2 more this year. Like, that would be a full percentage point.
Potentially, yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot. If even if you miss out 0.1 each cut, that's a big difference.
It's a huge amount. Well, I'm hearing they're passing on 10 basis points rather than 25, right? So already, if 50's been passed on, 50's been passed on, you've only got 20 out of it. That's 30. That's more than one of those whole rate cuts that you're not getting the benefits of. So I would recommend to every single person listening to this now, stop what you're doing and go and check all your interest rates and just make sure you've got the 25 passed on. Yeah. If you haven't.
And move quickly before you get into that mortgage prison.
Yeah.
Because often people in those non-bank lenders are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And the longer you leave it, the harder it is to move somewhere else.
But what I would say to that, though, is if you invested using a non-mainstream lender, which are very good, by the way. I'm not beating them up at all. I think I've used them in the past. I think they're great. But if you secured a loan through any of them at least a year, it's certainly 2 years ago, you've probably got the right equity position potentially now to be able to looking at refinance or getting down or to a different lender. However, if your serviceability position hasn't changed, that's where you start talking about mortgage prison, right? Where you don't actually meet servicing requirements in order to move that mortgage. But I would say there's probably a lot more flexibility now because...
Yeah, there is. And a lot of those people, as you say, like 2-3 years ago, the 1% alternative refinance solution didn't exist. So if they got checked without that, it's a huge difference to what's doable now.
Explain that again for our listeners.
For
this
our
is
listeners.
good. If you've been a good repayer.
Yes, very much, yeah. So banks will assess you with a 3% buffer on whatever rate you're paying at the moment. So if you're paying 6%, they will assess your rate as if it's 9%, which is really hard to service on that. Most people, if they ended up with a non-bank lender, is because they couldn't service. But major bank now are doing assessment with 1% buffer.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're on 6, it would just be 7. Much easier to get through.
And I know a lot of borrowers don't go to non-major lenders or non-bank lenders or mortgage managers because they don't satisfy specifically maybe the servicing needs or needs of the more mainstream lenders. A lot of property investors who may be redlining it may have been priced out of major banks because of their serviceability requirements, and therefore, this is an option. But then also you have this whole cohort of SME business owners who might not actually have their financial accounts done
But that's
for
becoming a lot
another
easier
reason,
as well.
you know, and therefore they've gone to a less common lender, and those less common lenders, by the way, are excellent. I'm talking about just a fringe case of when they're not passing on, they're not passing on 100% of the rate cuts. It could be time to refinance out. So there's so many options now. Mainstream to get out.
Yes, mainstream.
To get out.
Yeah, some of them just look at your NOAs.
Yeah.
Don't even look at your tax.
NOAs, notice of assessments.
Notice of assessment.
So what's it? I haven't looked at one of them for years. What's it say that you'll know you made this much money?
It's just one number. We don't know about the debts in the business. We don't know.
Really?
It's just one page.
They don't care.
They don't care. They would go with that. So there's lots of option there.
And this is the point. Lenders are in the business of lending money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Becoming easier. It is becoming easier for self-employed, for sure.
And lenders like to lend money.
Yeah, I think so.
They just want to get paid back, right? It's just elevate their money.
Yeah.
So, but we're talking about family pledges and guarantor loans here, and we sort of spoke about lower deposit rate, none, no LMI, no need first home buyer grant. So this just helps you move faster, but at a sort of more mechanical loan level, you can get faster approvals and purchasing processes, therefore probably a lot simpler by using family pledges.
Yeah, than having to go through even those, scheme and grants. But also if you're only at 5 or 10%, sometimes the process of checking you are able to get a loan when there is LMI required is a lot harder than if it's 80-20, like in a family pledge.
Oh, is it really? There's a slow down and low process, LMI?
Yeah, because LMI has to check it.
Okay.
The LMI provider has to check it.
It's back to the shared equity thing. Have the LMI providers said anything about this? Like, because
there wouldn't be LMI there
but they're getting cut out though. That's the problem. Like LMI, like traditionally where there would be LMI and LMI, people would like LMI because that's how they get a premium against it, get paid. I haven't heard boo from LMI providers going, "You're cutting us out."
I don't think it's going to be a big thing.
I watched with interest the most recent election. It sounded like it was the most important policy Australia had. It's crazy, housing policies.
Yeah, I don't see it that way. But
it's a fringe.
See.
We'll see how the numbers go. Anyway, we've been cynical again. And we've sort of made this point also is that, and this is a critical thing because this is about sort of long, not the immediacy of getting into the market, but why you're getting into the market is create wealth through property. And how do you create wealth through property? It's either you get equity uplifts and you can get utility out of that, and or you have it turns into a positive gear property which provides cash to you that you can use for other means. By doing it this way, you've got so much more flexibility in property choice. Yes. There's no real restrictions.
We discussed that. Otherwise, you're very restricted by price range and location. Yeah. So, and if you use a buyer's agent to buy investment property, I would bet a lot of money that you'll have a better result than.
How many buyer's agents specialise in finding properties using the schemes?
I don't know any.
I imagine they'd just be an off-the-plan project marketer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a sales agent.
Yeah. Be a sales agent saying, hey, it'd be like the brochure would say, hey, first-home buyers, you know the brochure, right? You've seen them before. Buy this now.
With a rebate.
Yeah, there's a rebate at the end.
Yeah.
You don't get depreciation, right? Because you're first, because
you're not,
right? But if that transitioned to a investment property, you would get a bit. So you see it all, You're going to make money and then you can negative gear it and everything. Okay. So you know the drill. Yeah. But this is an important point. This is the 6th point here, Eva, is around it avoids restrictions on income and citizenship. That's a really interesting point. So if you're a Aussie citizen, you can subscribe into the grants. If you're a permanent resident, do you get the grants?
Yeah, permanent resident.
Permanent residents get the grants also.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would. I got it as a PR, so yes, you would.
Coming to Australia, getting our grants straight away.
Yeah.
Did you sit there and go, that's brilliant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, this country. Never leaving again.
I laugh at it though. It's pretty cool though.
Yeah. To me, it seemed crazy, but yeah.
How did you find out about it? Did just someone tell you? Or did you go,
no, I just bought the place and my solicitor said, well, you got this, you got that. I'm like, what?
Free money.
Free money.
What was your first property? It's a home to live in? No,
yeah.
Property.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's sold now. See, it wasn't a good investment.
It wasn't?
No. Surprise. Yeah.
Surprise. But there's no income caps on this. caps.
That's right.
So this is all all the other stuff's largely contingent too, except for the stamp
Some
duty
of it-
stuff.
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
matter.
not. But like the one that's coming up with the shared equity and a few other things. I think it's 90 for a single person, 120 for a couple. Like really, it's not much if you want to be able to afford the property comfortably.
Yeah. Again, this is all good, whether it's using grants or using the bank of mum and dad, is what they call it. You still got to pay the loan back.
Yep.
That's the key thing, you know. And it's not the sort of thing where you can do it for a couple of months. Go, oh, I don't like this anymore. I went out. Well, it's expensive to get out.
It's expensive to get out just as much.
You
as,
can't just throw back the keys and say, oh, I'm out of this, right? Like you'll go bankrupt and the lender will come banging down the door. They're going to take your home, and guess what? They're going to be knocking on mum and dad's door, and they're going to find the cash pretty quickly to pay out that bit if the home isn't sold for what it's worth. So, yeah, it's tough to get it wrong. But this is a really important point, a final point here on why the bank of mum and dad may be a better alternative.
It's not even bank of mum and dad; it's equity.
Equity of mum and
should
dad.
I say?
Yeah, it's the equity in mum and dad.
We're not taking any money from mum and dad.
No, they just got a contingent.
Yeah.
Brings families closer together.
Don't they?
Families in debt together thrive together, right? Isn't that the...
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe. You actually get better interest rates on this basis because you're borrowing. Are you borrowing
80%,
at
yeah.
80%?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big difference.
But you're really borrowing at 103%.
No.
Because they've got the
80,
contingent
20,
equity bit.
Mm.
Yeah, okay. Like how much better would they be?
If we look at an investment property, you'd be looking at 6.1
Yeah.
at 80% to 6.8 plus at 90%.
To 6.890.
Yeah. On an investment on interest only.
I'm getting rates now at high fives.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, it is. I'm just looking for like someone that would just have one investment
One
property,
investment
not
property.
much to negotiate.
I was going to
based
say,
on.
so you guys have done a good job at Finni sorting my interest rates out. I spoke to Beck the other day, by the way, and pestering her about getting some more
Yeah,
loans.
she told me.
what
So
did
I
she
failed
say?
game again.
Did she roll her eyes?
Yeah.
Oh, what's he doing now? It's a joker. Good. Okay.
So yeah, good. I think it's a great product. It's been going on for many years.
it's not
It's
new.
just I don't know why people don't know
It's
about it.
misunderstood,
Misunderstood.
much like me.
So
Misunderstood.
do a podcast on yourself, Phil.
Yeah.
Then,
Maybe I should launch a new podcast called Property Misunderstood.
yeah.
Maybe there's something in it. But it's misunderstood. So
So
there's two sides of this. Is if you're a young investor looking to get going, maybe when your mum and dad invite you over for the Sunday dinner, you rock up and you sit there, put a smile on your face, and
I'd say, Phil, most parents would want to help their kids somehow.
yeah, how would you sell it to them? Say, you're rocking up, going, "Oh, mum and dad, hey, did you
I have
know?"
a full business plan written by ChatGPT
PowerPoint.
on how you're going to be able
Do
to
a PowerPoint presentation.
No, I think it's valuable for anyone to say they want to get into the market. They need help, but they don't need the mum and dad cash.
So how would you help people explain it? Say your parents who you're going to tap up for this, and this could be for anyone who's going to invest. It doesn't matter you're 25, 35, 45. If you've got a family member, brother, sister, uncle, auntie, someone that's happy to put their hand up, you can leverage that. So what would be, if they're a bit traditional in their ways, and you still have that quite a lot in Australia, like, property investing the way in which people tune into this podcast is still quite foreign for a lot of people. They think you got to go and get a good job, buy a house, live in it, paid off for 35 years, retire, right? Like, still a lot of people that's psyche and mindset. How would you approach them if they've got more traditional views around home ownership and they think investing is really really risky? How would you give me a simple language?
Yeah, it could be still an unoccupied property, right?
Yeah.
So it could be that.
Yeah.
You could go with, I want to buy my dream home, just like you did, mum and dad. However, I can't do it just yet. So I'm going to leverage investing to get there, right? And then I would go with, well, I don't have any savings. I just got my first job, passed probation. I've got a bit of, 5,000, whatever is there. I'm happy to pay for legal fee and anything. I'm not going to ask you for any money can I just please use the equity in that bedroom that I used to be in? And in 3 years' time, when my property value has increased, you can have the bedroom back.
So I'm just borrowing my childhood bedroom for 3 years. Cool.
And I'm not going to move back in. Don't worry.
Well, that's an important point. For on the other side, like you want your kids out of the house.
Yes.
There you go. There you go, Johnny.
Yeah.
There you go, Sally. On your way. I can't afford it. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I think people prefer that than having to give their kids like 150K.
Yeah. Well, it means they're responsible for paying it all, right?
Yeah.
Like it means it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
It means you still go on your overseas holidays.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
it's not going to compromise your life other than if you've got more ambitious investing to do yourself and you want the equity out of your like. But I'm sure most parents would go, yeah, I can compromise a little and get it on there.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen or heard of it going wrong?
No.
Really?
No.
So normally, people take it quite serious and there's a fair amount of discipline.
Yeah. And I think banks as well, like when it's a pledge, they also really check everything.
Okay.
And obviously you need to service the loan. That's on 3% buffer.
So there needs to be, how much equity do they want to see in the parent's house though? There need to be a lot though. They wouldn't want the parent to, if they take this charge over the equity that they have in the parent's property, they wouldn't want to put them in an LVR position above 80%, I would imagine.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're talking about your parents.
Well, let's say if you buy if you need, I don't know, a loan just for equity, 80 grand to buy a property for 500 or whatever, you would just need 120K of equity in the home.
Okay.
It's not very much.
No. If they've had their house for a while, that should be okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If your parents bought a property in Sydney like 30 years ago, that's the window, not even the bedroom. It's a shed at the back.
It's a shed at the back. It's the garage.
Yeah.
So you guys now, it's Finni, the experts on helping Aussie investors into.
We do a lot of family pledge.
Good.
And I must say,
You're happy to do more?
Yeah, people do not come to us for that, but once they know about it, that's the solution they go with.
So they probably go, I want to be a property investor, and what are you telling me? I can do it maybe 1-2 years earlier than what I would expect.
Yeah, well, they would go like, oh, I've got 5%. I'm going to pay at MI. I'm going to have a 8% rate. And I'm like, oh, do you have anyone that would share equity with you? Yeah, mom and dad, I'll ask. And 2 days later, yeah, they're happy to.
How often do you do like a group call of mum and dad and?
Yeah, we have to do it when, and most of the time parents want to chat.
Have you ever seen it kick off like where they're going, yeah, well, I know you can't do it. You're asking for more. No, we're not going to do it. So they never said no.
No.
There you go. You got 100% strike rate. Use Eva, everyone.
I'll talk to mum and dad and I'll tell them.
Would you do it?
Yeah, I would explain how it works.
Yeah.
And obviously there are risks if your kid doesn't pay the loan.
But you know your kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can just take over the investment property and kick them out and make them rent. Lots of ways to skin a cat. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
You guys, so I was saying, you guys super busy at the moment, or is it
We've been really busy with people wanting to settle their purchase before the end of financial year.
It doesn't really matter, does it? It's normally the contract date is what matters.
Yeah, it's I guess a mental thing. I need to buy a property every year. Just quick.
Well, it's funny you say that. Finni.com.au, or you can actually book directly with you guys online.
Yeah, finni.com.au, book a call,
and
then choose your time, and that's easy.
Easy peasy. Well, thanks for coming in. That was really detailed. Lots of info there. You can go and check it all out. Also, we'll probably write some articles around this as well. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. More insights. If you need help persuading your parents, just call Eva and her team. Maybe they can help you out. But probably the other way as well. If you want to get your kids into the property market and they might not be aware of this and they want to speak to someone, I'm sure Finni would be happy to chat about that. Maybe you should do like a workshop or some sort of thing.
And it doesn't have to be your kids. It can be your sister or your brother.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Remember, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Keep the reviews coming wherever you're tuning into this, whichever platform you tune into your podcast. Team get a kick out of it, and I like to see them as well. A lot of cool stuff coming online in the financial year as well as we near it, and I'll give you some insights around it as well as we get closer to releasing some of these new cool stuff. We'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.